Okay, my name is Diaria Moultrie. I trying to get it started. Okay, perfect. Okay, so my name is Diaria Moultrie. I chose the serve and return presentation with this pretty little girl. She was actually an infant in this picture, but this picture is at least a year old now. She's now a toddler. The toddler in my video is my daughter. Her name is Legacy. Um, and she's 3 years old. And the infant in my video is a co-worker of mine. It's her daughter, and her name is Imaya. And this was actually me and Imaya and I's first time ever interacting with each other. Fun fact. Okay. So first, let's begin. Um, the importance of the importance of this assessment was to go over those 5 steps of brain building activities. Um, from there. Okay, so the serve and return is the tech is the brain building tactic that we covered for this assignment. I didn't know much about this. I can't lie. I don't think I've ever had to go over like serve and returns for any reason. Um, and so I gained a lot of knowledge at the end of this. Like I know a lot more. Basically, I'm not gonna act like I didn't implement it because I did, but it was more so of a natural. Like I'm naturally an interactive person. I'm naturally super communicative. I remember when my daughter was really small, people would say how I don't speak to her like she's a baby. Like I don't do goo gaga. I kind of was like, oh my gosh, these are toes. Oh my gosh, how many toes? 10 toes. And she'll put her toes in my face, that kind of stuff. So I was already doing it. Um, the steps to serve and returns. I just didn't have a name for it at the time, and now I do. So those exchanges between the child and the adult are intentional, and they are to build the development of that infant and or toddler. Let's see. Okay, the social emotional development of a child affects all areas of development. I've learned that through all of the discussion posts we've done. The social emotional development it intertwines with the cognitive development, even the physical development. Oftentimes, because kids learn so much in social settings and those emotional settings, how to self regulate and all those different things. So, a social emotional environment that is considered developmentally appropriate and encompasses developmentally appropriate practices always offers a safe space for infants and toddlers, like generally safe. And it's geared towards their development. That's why it's developmentally appropriate. And these are at these ages, so from infant, toddler ages, they look very different, but they're very crucial to who this infant slash toddler becomes as a child and as an adolescent and as an adult. Very crucial points, because around these ages we going over the autonomy of a toddler, the independence that they seek for an infant, that trust versus mistrust. These are very important and crucial stages of development for infants and toddlers. And so, like gearing towards that social emotional development and really honing in on that is very important. Um, okay, so step one. I went over what I observed and learned, not exactly how they showed in the rubric. I decided to do it by definition of the steps. So the definition and then what I observed, what I learned, all in one for an infant. And then you'll see in the next slide, I did the same thing. Step one, share the focus, observe, and learn for a toddler. So instead of doing it like 2 slides for infant and toddler, in my brain, it was easier to do it this way. Okay, so step one, share the focus, observe, and learn for an infant. Um, Noticing what interests an infant is so wild because they get interested in a lot of things. I stress all the time how, and it's so funny that I had to do this assignment because I stress all the time to my coworkers, even other kids. I'm like, I don't really do the little babies. In my mind, I'm like, you have to be able to communicate with me, right? It took this assignment for me to see how well small children, so infants, how well they can actually communicate. Did Amaya say a word to me? No, she did not. However, I understood exactly what she wanted to do and what she didn't want to do and what she wanted to move on. And she understood me because she would listen to my prompts. And so sharing the focus is the first step, and it's very important because showing interest in what they're interested in engages. That level of engagement is present at this step. This very first step, it doesn't have to be verbal, like a verbal interaction between an infant and a trusted adult. I just had to share that focus with her, and she began like pointing to what interested her. She began um kind of making sure my eyes were going in the direction of that, because she would look at me like, try to engage in eye contact so I could see exactly what she was looking at and exactly what she was focused on. um do want to point out their focus changes very quickly, and that's sort of different when talking about toddlers. All right, so step one, share the focus, observe, and learn of a toddler. And that toddler there is my little human, my little legacy. And that is her pointing to our smart board. So my classroom is brand new. You can see the big old box in the back. Um, and so she's interested in that smart board. And I think I had just gotten it in my class. And of course, it's summertime, so we're going over the whole class setup and stuff. And she was just so interested in it. And I was like, okay, so what are you looking at? And she was like, this. And I was like, so you want to, play with this? And, like, what would you like to do? And she, of course, wanted to do math. She loves math. She loves numbers. She loves all of that, right? The importance of, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, the importance of a toddler, sharing the focus with a toddler is basically to um, kind of let them lead. We learned chapter chapter 9, 10, one of them, how important it is to let toddlers lead, because a lot of times that can decrease those chances of like reluctance and that resistance and that defiance and that no stage that a lot of toddlers experience. Letting them lead and letting their independence flourish can kind of help that cease. Step two, support and encourage observed and learned for the infant. So encouragement is very easy for me. That's something that's supernatural. I'm super duper cheerleader. Infant, toddler, newborn baby, whatever. Once again, I'm not super around. I'm not always around or not really accustomed to being around younger children, younger small children. But even still, like, I'm very much a cheerleader of a person. Like, I can see a small human walking in the store, and I'm like, yay, look at you taking your steps. And the kid kind of look at me like, who is this lady? But that encouragement and that support kind of, well, in this situation specifically, it encouraged Maya to keep going, like to continue doing. When I would go, oh my goodness, which kids love to hear, especially in like the sing songy voice, it made her want to do it more, right? And so learning that immediately let me know, hey, that's kind of like praise to her, and she's enjoying this. Let me continue doing this if I want to continue to see this action. Um, so very important step there. Support and encouragement looks different for a toddler in that a toddler may like that, like a toddler may not need your support or encouragement. uh Saying certain, okay, so once again, and let me get my thoughts clear because I want to say this, and this for this specific situation, that support and encouragement continue, let my daughter continue going, that you can do it, oh great job, and take your time. That right there kind of just as it did with Emaya, it let her keep going. She just felt safe to keep going and keep trying, right? And she was doing a good job anyway. But if I'm talking about a toddler at the defiant stage, at that no, and everything is no, everything is in opposition to what the trusted adult is saying, support and encouragement could look different. It could look like, Okay, well, even though you did a good job, you can stop. And they're like, no. And it's like, okay, well, you can keep going. And I'm like, no. Right? So they could look different, but the purpose is still the same. The purpose is to allow that exploration for them. So the whole function of step two may look different from an infant and a toddler, but the purpose is still the same. That makes sense. It's to continue that exploration and feel confident doing so. Step three, name it. So observe and learn the infant when I named it with Imaya. She once again didn't say anything. I don't think she said two words the whole time, but she did like clap her hands and she smiled really big. She had pretty dimples and that kind of stuff, right? So one of the things that I named was the like, oh, green ball, and then she started like spinning the ball, and I'm like green ball, emphasizing green ball, and then she like spin it faster, right? And then triangle, and I tried to do like three sides before she kind of flipped over to the pages, right? And so I started saying the alphabet on one page and counting numbers. She once again was super engaged with it, and when I got to the end of the alphabet, she started clapping her hands. So that let me know that she recognized the song, even though she didn't sing it with me, right? And so naming it is extremely important. And for me, I teach older kids. I teach pre-K. So getting those, hey, these are these words. This is what these words mean. This is how we use these words appropriately, right? I'm like fine tuning words that they already have and then giving them new words. Naming it is extremely important for me. With infants, you're giving them those first words. You're setting that foundation. And it's extremely important because that's how they kind of start making connections. Similarly with toddlers, step three, name it, observed and learned with a toddler. With my toddler, she's always been kind of advanced. She's always been really advanced, especially cognitively. Especially cognitively. She's always been, and even socially. Like she was one of those kids who was like bye really early on. Walked really early on. She was just super duper. What is that? I remember my daughter was really small and she couldn't say words that began in is. So, but she would look up and she would see a star and she would go, Tar, Tar. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like you like what? 10 months talking about Thor. Whenever she was seeing airplane, same thing. Really early on, she was speaking, right? But once again, if you go back a few slides and listen, I said that I never really did baby talk with my daughter. I didn't, only because I didn't see how that was. Well, now I have the words developmentally appropriate. I'm like, I don't want her to talk like Google Gaga. I want her to talk like this is this. This is how I feel, even early on. So with this, I'm like, what do you want to do? And she's like, numbers. And I'm like, well, working with numbers is called math. And she was like, well, I want to do math. Very smart girl. She catches on very quickly. We work on how letters make words, words make sentences. I do the same thing with math. Like that's a mathematical sentence. This is the number one. This is a plus sign. It means we're going to add. It means we're going to have more. This is the number one again. This is equals. This is telling you what we have at the end of it, right? That kind of stuff. So naming is extremely important for toddlers, like I said earlier. It's even with infants because you're giving, like you're putting meaning to things now, right? They start making those really big connections. Okay, this is what this means, right? I have the words. Now I have the name for it. Step four is take turns back and forth, observe and learn with an infant. So take a turn back and forth. That direct back and forth interaction is super important. Because for an infant, it teaches sharing, right? It teaches sharing. With Imaya, we took turns back and forth. And I had to say, like, hey, Miss, do you have a turn? And she didn't say yes or no. She just moved her hand out of the way, right? As you can see in this picture, she kind of let me turn the page, turn the next page, and then she'll, turn the page back. And so yeah, that sharing is very important. We know that social and emotionally, kids at most ages, even up to kindergarten, I would say, struggle with sharing. So this right here helps. This step four, take turns back and forth, helps teaching an infant, okay, I have to share. It's not just mine. With toddlers, that can be something extremely difficult. Being that the toddler was my toddler, I didn't struggle with it. But if she didn't want to give me that pen, she probably wasn't going to, because toddler is super important because toddlers struggle with that self concept. Toddlers have that self concept that this is mine, everything is mine, the world is mine. You may or may not be here, right? And so when we took turns back and forth, but she enjoys taking turns back and forth, especially once again, but especially because I'm her mother, and especially because we're used to that. We're accustomed to, okay, now it's mommy's turn. Okay, and then after you, can I have a turn, mommy? Like that. Very simple, not hard at all. And so if toddlers learn this early on, it can help. It can kind of lessen that hard break that that the world does not revolve around them once they get to like their pre-K age. When if a toddler can solidify that taking turns back and forth, and that the world is not just theirs, and that they are not the only person in the world, then that'll kind of make it easier when they transition into bigger social settings and have bigger expectations. The last step is step 5, and it's practice endings and beginnings. Observe and learn with an infant. Imaya had no problem ending what we were doing. Um, I kind of tried to like emphasize me pushing it back to show that we were all done. I even did the ASL for all done where I shook my hands. She kind of wasn't really too interested. She kind of just went ahead and navigated on to the balls, which is what she wanted to play with next. But I said all done. I made sure to say all done and then push. And I was like, "Look, Maya," and I pushed the walking pup toy back against the wall and say all done, just so she can kind of know that we were done with it, and that we're moving on to something else. But once again, an infant's attention span is very short, so she was kind of done with it anyway. But it's still very important because it can teach a routine, a pattern, right? In practice, step 5, practice endings and beginnings, observe and learn with a toddler. Can this step can benefit a toddler. I'm not going to say the most, but greatly, because that routine is essential in a toddler's age. A toddler is at that age where they kind of think the world is theirs. Still said that in the last step talking about toddlers, and they have to know like, hey, okay, this is it. This is over with. And now let's do this. With Legacy, she wanted to play with sensory foam. And I'm like, okay, so what do we do here first? Let me know what we do here first, right? And she was like, clean up. And I was like, okay, so before we go play with that sensory foam, we're gonna clean up here. How do we clean up? And then she was like, we erase. And you can see the picture down there of Legacy erasing. An imperative step to toddler's development, because that routine is very important. That like awakens something in them. Once a toddler can get a routine down pat, like once I use the restroom, then I wash my hands, that kind of stuff, that's when they have real independence. That's when they can learn how to follow directions. In concluding, I said it 1,000 times. I think I don't really interact with infants hardly ever, but I know how important it is to, you know, share the focus, support and engage, name it, take turns back and forth, and practice endings and beginnings, because these 5 steps of brain building encompass all areas of their development, infant and toddler both. And that is all. Thank you guys.